Hi everyone, what's going on? I'm Andrea, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be learning a simple and effective method of how to find the subject of your images. I give you some very useful tips on how to always have a clear and strong focal point in your images and avoid confusing your viewers. Alright, I bet you have been in a situation where you were taking pictures of an amazing landscape, but somehow the shots turned out a bit off and didn't really have a clear subject, you know what I mean. I see this mistake quite frequently during my workshops. I've been there, it's just part of the deal, you know. Not every shot is gonna be spot on every single time. So the basic composition rules, or better, general guidelines are not enough to always nail the shot. To increase your chances of getting strong and balanced compositions, there is a very easy process which can also help you create photos that much better represent your creative vision. Okay, let's go a bit deeper. Composition in photography is all about how you arrange and position the different elements in your photo. So anything that you can deliberately or purposely substitute inside the composition can be considered a separate object. And that thing that captures your attention and inspires you ultimately becomes the most significant object. That specific object is what becomes your subject. Your goal is to make that object not just the subject of your images, but the main focal point, the anchor point where to guide the viewer's eye. So now you define the subject for the scene you are standing in front of, it's essential to position that subject within the composition. The term composition is controversial to me. Composition is used across a wide range of artistic disciplines. It's music, as you may know, is combining different musical elements such as melody, harmony and rhythm. It's literally moving notes, instruments and sounds around as you like. In photography though, you can't always really move objects, especially in landscape photography. You have full control over most of the elements involved in creating a musical piece, but you can't physically move, for example, a tree, a river or a mountain, whatever you want. What you can really do though is crop the scene in a way that all the elements fit in a specific way. The things you choose to let in your frame have different weights depending on the distance from the edges, brightness, sharpness, contrast, and so on. A pleasing composition will use the positioning of these different weights to make a balanced photo. It's very important to take an active part in becoming fluent with the language of composition and with using the power of composition to enhance your creative work. That's why, in my opinion, the rule of thirds and other grids should be used to help you to position the different elements in your frame and not as a rule stating that your subject should be here or there. It's extremely important that when someone looks at your photo for the first time, their eye is immediately directed to the subject without any distraction. The viewer should be fully engaged with the main focus of the image without anything else pulling their attention away. And that's the thing you gotta keep in mind with every photo you take. Sometimes you hit the mark perfectly, sometimes not so much, but striving for perfection while also being willing to make compromises will give you the best outcome possible. So here is the deal. If you're having a tough time translating your spark of inspiration, I love calling it inspiration wave, like sound wave, into an actual photograph, I've got a simple and effective method to help you find out precisely what the subject of your image is. This method is based on the two simple questions. The first question that I want you to be able to answer is not the most obvious, what is my subject? Instead, asking yourself, what is my subject? Try to reframe it into what's the key visual elements that defines this photo. So you're just standing there, you have had your inspiration wave, you have trust yourself, you have stopped and you are looking out onto the scene. Now answer that question, what is the photograph of? I know it sounds too easy, but it actually is. Just ask yourself, what's the photograph all about? And let that guide you through the process. Sometimes the subject can be a little bit obscured, the subject can be a color or contrast, a little bit abstract, something like that. So it's not always the easiest thing to answer, but most of the time it is. All you gotta do is have a little discipline and self-control to ask yourself this question before you press the shutter. If a genuine spark of inspiration truly drives you, the answer to that question will point you straight to the subject. I guarantee you it's that simple. Okay, let's make a practical example. This is from Landmannalaugar in the Icelandic Highlands and I was there leading a photography workshop. Before we started our hike, we thought it would be nice to take a few shots right near the campsite. The area of Landmannalaugar is huge and it's easy to get overwhelmed by this vastness. So you might think using a wide-angle lens is the way to go, trying to capture everything in one shot, but guess what? It's too much to fit everything into the frame and you are literally missing the point of the first question you should ask yourself. What's the key visual elements that defines this photo, right? By the way, if you love wild landscapes and want to join me on my next trip to Iceland, next year I'll be leading a small group of photographers on a workshop in some of the most unique and remote areas in the Highlands. If you're interested, I'll leave the link in the description down below. Okay, let's go back to the image and follow me through the process. I'm gonna start with this snapshot captured with the iPhone. So this is basically the mountain I wanted to capture from another perspective, of course. Now, this is my first framing with a telephoto lens. So for me, it was this area of the mountain that caught my attention. The light wasn't exceptional, but it was quite dramatic and it was changing quite frequently because of the moving clouds. Then I like the way the trail zigzags and the people hiking give a great sense of scale. And of course the colors are absolutely gorgeous. And because this area caught my attention, it made me stop and think, wait, that would make an amazing photo. It was one of those fleeting moments that we all experience every now and then. So there were all the elements to create something really interesting. As it was though, I wasn't sure about the final result since the lighting wasn't perfect and there were too many people walking along the trail. Also the framing was a bit off in general. It didn't convey the type of feeling I envisioned. It would have been nicer having just one person in a better position and maybe even more dramatic light. So I could have easily ignored the scene and pointed my camera in a different direction, clueless about what I was missing. But that split second of inspiration is what truly matters when it comes to capturing a good photo or a great photo. And in this particular case, that spark of inspiration is tied to this specific area right here, because that's what caught my eye. So the answer to the question, what's the key visual elements that defines this photo? For me, that is this area, and that therefore is what my photo is about. The subject of my photo, so the main focal point. I would also add, be spontaneous and less mechanical when photographing. Trust your instinct, don't overthink and overanalyze everything, just trust yourself and your inner voice, because your gut feeling will always be right. There is a great quote from Edward Weston that says, to consult the rules of composition before making a picture is a little like consulting the law of gravitation before going for a walk. That's so true. And at the same time, practicing is the most effective exercise for improving composition. Okay, let's move to the second question. Another way to figure out what the subject is in your image is by considering where you want the viewer's eye to be led when they first look at the final picture. So the second question you want to ask yourself now is, how do I focus attention on my subject? Before you press the shutter, take a moment to visualize the final image in your head. Imagine what it's gonna look like. And here is the important part. Whatever object or area you want the viewer's eye to be led to, that's gonna be the main subject of the photo. If there is any object blocking that visual flow, just get it out of the frame. This point is crucial and overall everything else, because in this context, the subject is the hero of your photo, is the most important part of the image, is like the voice of the lead singer in a music band. So it's important to keep in mind that the subject will be the element or part of the image where the viewer's eye should be directed when viewing the image for the first time. Moving back to our image, I started experimenting with different vertical and horizontal framing, trying to figure out the best composition with the best balance. As you can see, I tried to use this combination of natural diagonals, but the sky here in the top left-hand corner is quite distracting and takes too much attention away from the subject. On this one, I shifted the framing a bit to the left, but it doesn't look good. On this next one, I got rid of the sky and it helps the composition quite a lot, but we are still not there. It's okay, but my feeling was the framing was too tight. Anyways, I figured I could make it even better by trying a horizontal composition and perhaps waiting a bit to see if the lighting improves. Here I'm going to move around, I'm going to isolate small portions of the mountain and they all have a different look and feel. That's a lot of fun to do with a telephoto lens. So of course you can experiment with different focal lengths, you can zoom out, zoom in, and try different angles. Just move around your subject if you have the opportunity. But it was when I found this composition that I said, okay, this is cool. I love the positioning of the walking trail, the depth lights that we have here in the center that was constantly changing, so it might be a great opportunity for something unexpected. I like the darker background that adds depth to the shots, as well as how this snowy area helps to create a nice balance between the top right and bottom left parts of the picture. The only part that I didn't quite like was the bottom of the frame. I cut off too much of the mountain, so instead of using a wider length, I decided to use the panorama technique, capturing multiple horizontal images at the same focal length to include more of the scene, and here is the final result. This is the picture I ended up with. This is the edited version using my new Lightroom Expedition presets to give the image a more moody feel. You can actually find the link to the presets webpage in the video description. This is my favorite shot, and the reason for that is because I have isolated this bright area that caught my attention at the beginning and framed it with this natural frame created by the mountain and taking advantage of the different levels of brightness. The mountain here on the bottom right helps to lead the viewer's eye in this direction, then moving up here, following the trail, passing the hiker that adds a beautiful sense of scale, continuing towards the top, and then cycling back along the mountain down here and starting again with this very nice visual flow. Now, the area itself tells a completely different story. This is less about the trail and the hiker itself and more about the environment around them. This is called working the scene, actually. So when you are out there practicing your compositions, don't forget to work the scene. Also, I highly recommend watching my video about simplification, which guides you through a simple framework for creating cleaner and more balanced compositions. Now, eventually, these questions are going to become kind of on a subconscious level. You are not going to have to think about them each and every time actively, but when you are just learning and you are trying to master composition, they will really help. This simple method is not an hypothesis, it's a conclusion. I've tested out this process for a very long time. I'm taking clients through it and I'm amazed by the feedback I received so far. So keep these two questions in the back of your mind, write them down, put them in your phone and carry them with you in the field when you are going out and taking pictures. They will seriously improve your photo composition skills. Alright, if you have enjoyed this video and it's the kind of thing you like watching, nice to have you around. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video. Ciao!